is beyond unacceptable that children are paying the ultimate price amidst the failure of political leaders in the US, in the UK and Europe to call for an immediate ceasefire and oppose violations of international law. Every hour, every day, the number of deaths get higher and higher. The Secretary of State has just said that a ceasefire would be, and I quote, premature. Can he clarify whether there is any limit at all of the number of Palestinian civilians that this government supports killing before calling for a permanent ceasefire? And can he explain what he understands to be the long-term plan with regards to Gaza and how this plan is in keeping with international law? My constituency has the highest number of signatories for two of the petitions being debated today and the third highest for the other. This came as to no surprise to me, as I have been inundated. The situation in Gaza has been the topic of the greatest amount of representations I have ever received. My constituents ask me, how is this being allowed to happen? What is it about Palestinian people that means that for this government and the political establishment there appears to be no limit as to what can be done to them, no limit as to how many can die, and no care as to their rights? To know how many Palestinians were slaughtered using UK-made weapons, how many children were dispatched using UK-traded armaments, how many women have been slain by ammunition from the UK, how many schools, hospitals and refugee camps have been annihilated with the help of UK engineering, how much profit is being made from death, destruction and war crimes. Is to therefore confirm whether this government's support for the continued bombing of civilians and civilian infrastructure will now apply in every conflict, or does it only apply in relation to Palestinian civilians and Palestinian hospitals? I know that many of my constituents are appalled that it appears that the UK continues to send weapons to potentially kill children whilst withdrawing funding that saves children's lives. I urge the government to prioritise upholding its humanitarian obligations and resume the funding. I'm asking again now that over 29,000 men, women and children have been killed, whether this government believes that there is any limit at all to the number of civilians slaughtered. The government only calls for an immediate ceasefire if and when a full ground offensive in Rafah begins. What assessment has been made of whether the government will have upheld its own obligations under international law, particularly in relation to the ICJ's provisional measures, including measures around the prevention of genocide? It's almost now 2 months since the ICJ's plausible genocide ruling, and yet the killing, the destruction and the weaponised starvation goes on. Humanitarian agencies have concluded that we have passed the point of being able to avert famine in Gaza. Whatever we do now, it will be too late for those people who will have starved to death by the time the aid arrives. That is a stain on the international community. That Israel has not limited its onslaught to military targets, and given the government's own licensing criteria refers to risk that items might be used to facilitate a serious violation of international humanitarian law or serious acts of violence against women or children, how can continue to arm Israel's bombardment of Palestinian civilians possibly be justified? As per the signatories of the petition today, including a large number of my own constituents, the strong feeling in our communities is evident and it is clear. In Gaza, we are witnessing collective punishment, destruction and displacement of human lives on a horrific and unprecedented scale. Ongoing indiscriminate bombing has turned a chronic humanitarian crisis into a catastrophe.